So, are the Florida Gators getting an offensive coordinator or no?
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI. Thanks again if you tuned in to yesterday's post-game show. We will be trying to do that as often as we can for the SEC schedule. But yesterday was a fun day, right? We'll start with this. The Florida Gators hiring an offensive coordinator has always been a hope, right? It's always been I hope he does it. That's always what we've talked about here. I think the Florida Gators need an offensive coordinator. But actually doing it, and this is something we've talked about quite a bit here, we were told this last year. Like last year, we were told, hey, Billy needs to hire an offensive coordinator. And it didn't happen. I will give him the credit to say that he did speak to candidates. He just ultimately decided no, which you could feel however you feel about that, right? You could say that what the hell is the point if you're not going to hire someone? You could say, well, he tried, whatever the hell you want to say, you can say. That's fine. But we were told this last year that Billy needs to hire an OC. He was told he needs to hire an OC. And then he went and spoke to people and said, I guess not. And he didn't. Then people were saying this year that Billy needs to hire an OC or he's fired. BS. That is never going to be a thing, okay? I refuse to believe that. I just don't think it's ever worked out where a guy is forced to hire an OC. I think the best or the most likely scenario is you get fired on your own. And also, I will say this, one of the Subtext insiders, which the link's in the description below, mentioned yesterday, he's still on the hot seat for me if he doesn't hire an OC. Here's the thing. You got to make the playoffs this year, in my opinion. I know that my expectations for the University of Florida are higher than the actual University of Florida. But he should still be on the hot seat for me. He has not proven that he's going to win a national championship, or he's not proven that he can win a national championship. And until you prove you can even make the freaking playoffs, you should be on the hot seat there. But a very important booster yesterday made a post that said Billy Napier was not going to be hiring an OC. It ain't happening. And everybody then went to Twitter and started talking about it, right? Everybody was going off about how this is BS and we never should have believed in it. We never should have bought it. We should have known it wasn't going to happen. We should have known this. We should have known that. We should have known every single thing about it. And again, I bring back the point that hiring an OC was always a possibility, right? It was always a might happen kind of thing. And yeah, isn't. Apparently, I don't fully buy it. This is the same booster, and this is no shade to that booster. I'm not name dropping him just because I don't think that that's a thing that you should do right now. So I'm not name dropping him. This is no shade to that booster. I am not saying that booster is not trustworthy. I am saying that this is the same booster that said, I'm ready to fire Napier and I'm willing to hear out the selling points for Lane Kiffin because I just want to win. I'm ready for return on investment on my money that I've been giving, and I want that return on investment in wins. Saying Florida would not release Deshaun Purdy, which then happened. All I'm saying is that it's not 100% accurate with these reports, right? It's not, oh, well, he said this, so it's a fact. Because, if I'm not mistaken, same booster said last year, Billy needs to hire an offensive coordinator. Didn't happen, did it? No, it didn't. The answer is no. If you didn't know, the answer is no there. So I don't fully buy that. But again, and I keep circling back to this because I do think that it's very important to acknowledge that hiring an offensive coordinator was always a hope of ours. Because, and by the way, hiring an offensive coordinator is the smart thing to do. We talked about this last week. Florida should be hiring OC. Like the big selling point was, well, the offense works great anyway, so why need an OC? Does it work great? Does it? I don't think it does. I've been very much clamoring about how it's not sustainable offense, and that you don't do the CEO things right, which we'll talk about in the next segment. But it was always a hope. It was never going to be Billy needs to hire an offensive coordinator in order to keep his job. And like I've said, I refuse to believe that that's going to be a thing that happens at Florida. I don't think that that's going to be a thing that'll ever happen at Florida. I think it's more likely that Billy Napier were to get fired before Florida says you need to hire an OC. And I also don't think that that's a thing that you should be given the opportunity to do at this point. Like, I think at this point in the game, at this point in the sequence, we've seen enough of Florida's coaching staff with Billy to say, hey, you don't, like, you had those opportunities for a couple of years now. You don't get to then hire an offensive coordinator where you now kind of get the excuse of, oh, but it's their first year in an offense. It's this, it's that. Things changed. Maybe he needs another year. You don't get to buy time when it comes to offensive coordinators. You should have done it. And if you are not a good enough coach, if you are not a smart enough coach to recognize that earlier, then that's on you. You don't get a mulligan because you screwed something up. You don't get a mulligan because you made a bad choice. So at this point, maybe Florida hires an offensive coordinator. Maybe they don't. I don't personally think that they will. It's always been a hope that they do. And like I've said, we were told last year, hey, this is happening, and it didn't happen. And so I spent all offseason saying, I don't know if it will happen, but we were told this last year and it didn't happen, so I'm not getting my hopes up. However, we are going to spin the block on the conversation of why Florida needs an offensive coordinator, whether or not the hire happens, when we get back with Locked On Gators. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC, and I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or you just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need, all within your budget, which I mentioned this whenever we last spoke about Wayfair, but we are redecorating, I guess we'll say, our living room, and we've been looking at Wayfair and having these conversations about, sectional, whatever the hell we're going to fit in here. Someone left the very wise advice of just let her pick and then move on with it, and you're in the clear there. Not bad. But also it started because there was a sale with another company, and now we are exclusively looking at Wayfair. The free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. I live in New York City, apartments, not super easy to navigate through, right? Like, it's beautiful. The site's easy to navigate. I don't know what the hell I'm looking at, so it's very helpful there. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And if you want to join the Insider program, the link is in the description below. First 2 weeks free, $5 a month after that. You're going to get probably on average 3 messages a day with any insider information or anything we may have there. But when we talk about why Florida needs an offensive coordinator, I want to make this abundantly clear. And I know that there's going to be people who have complaints about things that, honestly, those complaints just don't fully make sense. It is not the scheme that the Florida Gators run that is bad, okay? The scheme is fine. Pistol, fine. 12 personnel, fine. Like those things are fine, I promise you. It's not, well, pistol doesn't work. That is such a kindergarten thought process. You can't possibly just say, oh, well, kindergarten. You can't possibly just say, well, pistol's not going to work. Pistol can't work in college. Pistol can't work at this. It's ineffective. No, it's not. You know how egregious it is to make a statement like that? Pistol doesn't work. 2 tight end sets don't work. Not true in any way, shape, or form. It's just a lie. And honestly, kind of makes me lose respect for your opinion if you're going to make blanket statements like that. You could say, hey, you need to spread things out. By the way, condensed sets also not the issue. But you can say, hey, you need to spread things out. That doesn't mean that you need to go 5 wide. It doesn't mean you need 5 wide receivers out there. It doesn't mean you need to go 10 personnel. You can still go 12 personnel and spread things out. You can. It's called move a freaking tight end somewhere. Just slide them out. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that's an idea, right? Like, let's not get crazy with these things. It's not the scheme that's bad. It's Billy Napier's play calling that's bad. Okay? It's not pistol that's bad. It's how Billy Napier uses pistol. You want pistol. It's good. It's helpful. You can run basically anything out of pistol. That's great, right? That option is great. You can run to either side of the quarterback out of pistol. That's pretty great as well. You can still have all your motion coming across and still fake the pop pass after you do the pop pass. Like, you can do everything out of pistol. It makes a lot of sense. It's just how Florida uses it that's not super effective. And by that, I mostly mean that when they come out in pistol, they're telling you, hey, we want to run the football right here. And that's a horrible tell to have. Pistol, run, shotgun, pass. Horrible tell to have. That's not going to work. And I want to make this abundantly clear as well. Keep the scheme. I'm fine with it. Like, you can hire an offensive play caller and say, hey, you're going to come in, run my scheme, and that's how we're going to operate. Like, but you're coming in as an offensive play caller. You're not coming in to reinvent the wheel. And that's perfectly fine to do. Okay? Napier giving up play calling duty would allow him to handle the more CEO type responsibilities, we'll say. Okay? No more 12 men special teams, no more 10 men special teams. 11. No more needing to call multiple timeouts in a game for delay of game penalties. Like, that doesn't happen at programs that are run like well-oiled machines. It happens all the time at Florida. And one of my biggest knocks on Florida has been, or knocks with Billy, has been that far too often this team comes out just flat. Under Billy Napier, far too often this team has come out flat. And that's just, I don't know how you could really argue that, right? Like, going back to Billy Napier's tenure at Florida, they came out flat against Kentucky in 2022. Came out flat against USF in 2022, which, horrible, kind of embarrassing. Don't forget, Kentucky also ran all over them in 2022 and 2023. They came out flat there as well. Vanderbilt in 2022, they came out flat. Then you look at 2023, and, well, you got, again, Kentucky there, Utah. I mean, you lost by 13, but it felt like you lost by 30, right? Like, it just felt like Utah just did whatever they want to you there. So you came out flat there. Came out flat against South Carolina. Came back to win, but you came out flat in that game. You came out flat against Arkansas and lost that game when they had, I think it was 2-7 was their record at the time. Came out flat against Miami. Just looked like you weren't even trying. Came out flat against Texas A&M this year. You got out-coached, or not even out-coached. You just did a horrible job coaching against Tennessee this year. Came out flat against Texas. Like, far too often, this team has come out flat under Billy Napier. And I do think that if he spends, or if he's, I guess we'll say, forced to spend less time on the actual game plan, which he's still going to contribute on, by the way, but less time on just running the offense and more time on just running the team, I do think that things will work better. Like, handling the CEO type things is fine. It's what we thought he would do when he got hired. It is. You look at the James Franklins. You look at the Matt Campbells, who I know they're not in the SEC. I get it. I do. I understand that they're not in the SEC. It's basically a different sport, right? Sure. But you can be a CEO type of head coach and win. Look at Ryan Day at Ohio State. He gave up play calling duty, and they're very likely going to win the national championship. They're at least competing for it. Probably going to win. I don't think many people would dispute you there. But he gave up offensive play calling duty, and the offense still running great. They're scoring a bunch of points. They're winning games. They're in the national championship. Even if they lose, they're in the national championship. The year he gives up offensive play calling duty. Like, I'm not saying that Billy Napier is the worst play caller on the planet. I'm just saying he's not good enough to win in the SEC right now. Give it up. Let someone else go. And when your team does win, guess what will happen? People won't go, oh, that offensive coordinator is a great guy. You know what they're going to do? They're going to look at Billy Napier and they're going to say, hey, good job. Like, he made the move that needed to be made. But right now, the issue that most fans, I believe, have with the Florida Gators is not the roster. The roster's really good. It's the coaching. Coaching needs to catch up to the talent. That's always been the thing. Coaching needs to catch up to the talent. And we're still waiting for that as Florida Gators fans. And I don't think that that's going to happen as long as Billy Napier is the offensive play caller. I just don't. We'll talk about some candidates that I like next when we get back with Locked On Gators. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Happened to this guy right there. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. I got a notification today that was like, hey, uncategorized charge coming in, or uncategorized charge coming in, incoming in 2 days, I think it said. And it was like, hey, is this a thing that you knew was coming? Are you prepared for this? It's beautiful. I love it. For me, one of the best features is that subscription tracker. Used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore that I definitely thought I did cancel. And I've already saved a ton of money with it. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every single month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And I am going to go through some Florida Gators offensive coordinator dream hires, a little wish list, if you will. And I am starting with not someone that I think is a legitimate candidate, but someone that I feel absolutely should be a legitimate candidate, and it's Jake Peetz. Jake Peetz is someone that we spoke about a lot last year when we were having these same conversations about, oh, well, is Billy Napier going to hire an offensive coordinator? A lot of times when people hire offensive coordinators, they go to offensive coordinators or they go to coaches that they were on staff with, which for Billy Napier, he was on the Alabama staff at the same time as Jake Peetz. And Jake Peetz, since the time in Alabama, has gone on to be a running backs coach with the NFL, then a quarterbacks coach in the NFL, then an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach with LSU in 2021. Okay. That was the year that Ed Orgeron was forced to resign, we'll say, with LSU. And so when the LSU staff left, was canned essentially, he went to the LA Rams. And he's been he was with the Rams for 2 years, learning under Sean McVay, which, by the way, I mean, Billy tries to replicate the Sean McVay, Shanahan offense, tries. But Jake Peetz was learning under Sean McVay. He was there in 2022 and 2023. So when Sean McVay made that shift from more wide zone to running duo, like when he made that shift, Jake Peetz was there for it. Jake Peetz knows what it takes for the offense to change, right? He was a pass game coordinator with the Seattle Seahawks this past season. And considering they fired offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, I do think that, one, there's a possibility Jake Peetz and the rest of the offensive staff won't fully be retained, but also there's a possibility that coaches on that offensive staff are just like, hey, I think it's time for me to go somewhere else. Like I'm looking for somewhere else. Getting offensive play calling duties back for Jake Peetz after he got to spend time with Sean McVay, yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. Like if you're, again, I don't need this A+ huge name offensive coordinator. I need someone that can run the offense, okay? I need someone that can come in and operate an offense functionally and have the team look good. And I know that I've seen people mention Ryan Grubb. A couple things about that. One, if he goes back to college, I do think that the Alabama Crimson Tide are an early favorite for it. Kalen DeBoer is there. But I'm generally not a fan of going and hiring a guy that the moment an NFL job came calling, the moment a lateral NFL job came calling, he left. His Ryan Grubb was with Washington when they made the playoff run. Then he went with Kalen DeBoer to Alabama, and Seattle came calling, and he left immediately. To me, that just says, hey, if another NFL team calls him for an OC job, he's leaving. That's how I look at it, at least. And yeah, there's a number of names out there that I think a lot of us would like and appreciate. I mean, Buster Faulkner at Georgia Tech's done a hell of a job lately. Brennan Marion, before he went to become the head coach at Sacramento State, which I'm sure he's going to do excellent at, but Brennan Marion would have been a fun name as well. And for anybody going, oh, you don't completely reinvent the offense with the go-go. You don't need to. Okay, the go-go is something that you could just add to the offense, that those go-go concepts, something you could just add to the offense. And for the most part, you still run your offense. That's a totally fine, totally acceptable thing to do. Again, you don't need, like, that's why I don't care too much if you're like, oh, we're bringing in this innovative mind. I don't need that. I need someone that can come in and run the, go get Willie Corn if you want. Like, I know Willie Corn is a name that some people have soured on in the past year, but he's still a name that knows Billy Napier, knows at least a good chunk of what Billy Napier wants to do, has OC experience where I know it's like, oh, well, he wasn't calling every single play because they did the collective thing that Florida tried and Billy Napier mentioned that they tried. I get it. But he's still a guy that can come in and take over play calling duties and run the freaking offense. And like, I'm fine with the names that have been thrown around, like Cade Bell. If you want to just promote Russ Callaway to full-time OC and give him the play calling duties, like, that's fine with me. Really, I just want someone to come in and take play calling duties because I think Billy Napier is not great at it. And I think that it would allow Billy Napier to be more of a CEO type. And I think that alone elevates you. Do what elevates you. Also, let's acknowledge this one. Swing for the absolute fences and give Brian Hartline at Ohio State a call and say, hey, you want to try your hand at being an offensive play caller? Dude, I know Brian Hartline's a name that people have mentioned with the Florida Gators for a couple of years now. He's a great receiver recruiter. Florida has great receivers in the state, and you'd pretty much take any receiver that you want at that point at a high school in the state of Florida. And the obvious, screw it. Hey, go hire Brian Hartline, give him offensive play calling duties, and say, hey, Jeremiah Smith, you want to come play for him? You want to come play for DeBilly? You want to go play with DJ Lagway? You could do all that. And I know that this is not as easy as I'm making it sound, but there are possibilities out there that would make the Florida Gators better, and that's all I give a damn about right now. Make the Florida Gators better, compete, win. You've got a great roster. Coaching has to catch up to the talent. That's what we're talking about. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI, and I will see you all next time.